The glass fortress, the conference hall buzzed with anticipation as security personnel cleared a path through the crowd. Dmitry Kovacs walked in with his characteristic detachment, the sharp lines of his tailored suit matching his precise movements. At 42, he had the measured confidence of someone who had calculated every risk in life and emerged victorious. "Mr. Kovacs doesn't take questions," his assistant announced to the disappointed journalists as Dmitry approached the podium. He scanned the audience with piercing gray eyes that had seen through countless deceptions both in code and in human nature. His cybersecurity firm, Obsidian Shield, protected half the world's financial institutions. The business press called him the digital fortress, as impenetrable as the security systems he designed. "Security isn't just about keeping threats out," Dmitry began, his voice carrying the faint trace of his Hungarian heritage. "It's about knowing which threats have already found their way inside." In the third row, Nadia Ochoa listened intently, taking notes on actual paper rather than a device. Her curly black hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, her olive skin without makeup. At 34, she had built a reputation in a completely different sphere of the tech world using her extraordinary hacking skills to protect humanitarian organizations from cyber attacks. When the Q&A portion began, despite his assistant's statement, Nadia raised her hand with quiet persistence until she was acknowledged. "Mr. Kovacs, your security systems are unmatched," she said, standing, "but they're also priced beyond what humanitarian organizations can afford. Do you believe digital safety is only for those who can pay for it?" A slight murmur rippled through the crowd. No one challenged Dmitry Kovacs directly. Dmitry's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, perhaps. "And your name is?" "Nadia Ochoa, Digital Protection Alliance." "Ah, the famous ethical hacker." He gave a thin smile. "The world operates on exchange, Ms. Ochoa. Value for value. Including human lives," she countered. "Especially those," he replied. "When things are given rather than earned, they're rarely valued correctly." The audience watched, transfixed by their exchange. "Interesting perspective from someone who built an empire selling peace of mind," Nadia said, without hostility but with unwavering conviction. For a moment, something genuine crossed Dmitry's face. Respect, perhaps. It vanished quickly behind his practiced mask. After the conference, Dmitry found himself in his penthouse suite, staring at Nadia's profile on his secure tablet. Unlike most, she had minimal online presence, intentionally so. He suspected. The daughter of Colombian immigrants, degrees from MIT, declined lucrative corporate offers to work with refugee organizations and human rights groups. "Sir," his assistant interrupted, "the Digital Protection Alliance is requesting a meeting. Ms. Ochoa claims they've identified a vulnerability in the new banking protocol." Dmitry set down his glass of bourbon. People approached him daily with schemes to access his wealth or influence. This was likely no different. "Schedule it," he said, surprising even himself. "Let's see what she really wants." Behind his glass walls, Dmitry prepared himself for yet another disappointment. People always wanted something, and in his experience, everyone had a price. Digital Bridges. 3 days later, Dmitry sat in his minimalist conference room, watching as Nadia Ochoa set up her presentation. She hadn't brought an entourage of assistants or lawyers, just a worn laptop covered in stickers from various humanitarian missions and a determined expression. "The vulnerability affects the secondary authentication protocol," Nadia explained, typing rapidly as her code appeared on the wall screen. "Here's see how the token verification doesn't properly sanitize this input. In a refugee database, this could expose identities to governments they're fleeing from." Dmitry leaned forward, his interest genuine despite his suspicion. "The vulnerability was subtle, something only an exceptional coder would catch. Why bring this to me instead of exploiting it?" he asked bluntly. "Your reputation suggests you could have made your point more publicly." Nadia closed her laptop. "Because public shaming doesn't protect refugees, solutions do." "And what solution? Are you proposing Project Sanctuary?" she said, sliding a proposal across the table. "A joint initiative. Your security expertise, my field experience. We create an open-source security layer specifically for humanitarian organizations." Dmitry scanned the document, his expression unreadable. "This would require significant resources." "Yes," Nadia nodded. "And zero profit. That's probably the part you're struggling with." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You presume to know what I value." "I know what you charge," she countered. "There's a difference." 2 weeks later, they were working from a dedicated floor in the Obsidian Shield headquarters. Dmitry had assigned a team but found himself increasingly involved personally. He observed Nadia as she worked her focus absolutes, her coding elegant. She lived in a small apartment, wore the same rotation of practical clothes, and declined every luxury his staff offered. "You could stay in the corporate housing," Dmitry suggested one evening as they worked late. "It's closer. My apartment has character," she replied without looking up from her screen. "And neighbors who actually speak to each other. You find that appealing? The lack of privacy." Nadia finally glanced at him. "Connection isn't an intrusion, Dmitry. It's a resource." He studied her, trying to discern her angle. Everyone in his experience eventually revealed their true motivation: access to his wealth, his influence, or both. As the project progressed, they faced a crucial decision about implementation. Nadia argued for a decentralized approach that would give organizations more control. It's less efficient, Dmitry objected. But more ethical, Nadia insisted. These people have had their agency stripped away enough. Something in a passionate defense stirred an unfamiliar feeling in Dmitry. Later, he found himself researching the refugee camp where Nadia had spent 6 months. The conditions were appalling, yet in photographs she looked more alive there than in his state-of-the-art facilities. When his investigator delivered a comprehensive background report on Nadia, Dmitry hesitated before opening it. The dossier would confirm what he already knew: everyone had ulterior motives, a price at which principles were negotiable. Instead, he found himself asking, what if she's different? The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. The silent test, the project Sanctuary prototype, was nearing completion when Dmitry made his decision. For weeks, he'd watched Nadia work with unwavering dedication, declining networking events with influential donors to spend extra hours debugging code. She lived modestly, brought homemade lunches, and seemed genuinely uninterested in the trappings of wealth surrounding her at Obsidian Shield headquarters. Yet doubt lingered. Dmitry had been fooled before by expert players of long games. I need to discuss something with you, he told Nadia one evening. As the office emptied, he led her to his private office, a space few were invited into. 4-2 windows offered a panoramic view of the city lights below. Project Sanctuary has exceeded expectations, he began, watching her carefully. I'm considering expanding its scope. Nadia's eyes lit up. That's wonderful. The refugee centers in Jordan could be our next implementation site. Actually, Dmitry said, moving to his desk, I had something more substantial in mind. He pulled up a contract on his display and turned it toward her. I want you to lead a new division at Obsidian Shield, humanitarian cybersecurity. Nadia blinked, scanning the document. This is a very generous offer. 10 million annual budget, complete autonomy, personal compensation package including equity that would make you wealthy in your own right. Dmitry's voice remained casual, but his eyes missed nothing. Plus the penthouse suite in the corporate building. Your commute would be an elevator ride. Her fingers hovered over the screen and Dmitry felt a familiar disappointment beginning to form. Everyone had their price. He'd just found hers. Why? Nadia asked, suddenly looking up at him. Why? What? Why? This offer, why now? The project isn't even fully implemented. Dmitry shrugged. You've proven your value. Obsidian Shield rewards excellence. Nadia stood, walking to the window. For a long moment she was silent, her reflection ghostly against the darkened city below. When I was 12, she finally said, my parents and I spent 6 months in a refugee center after fleeing Colombia. A group of hackers breached the database. 3 families were found and killed because their information was compromised. She turned to face him. That's why I do this work. Dmitry maintained his neutral expression, waiting. This offer, she continued, gesturing to the contract, would take me away from the field, from the people who need protection most. It would give me comfort while distancing me from the very purpose that drives me. She shook her head slowly. I can't accept it. The compensation is negotiable, Dmitry offered, watching her face. It's not about the money. Dmitry, her voice was gentle but firm. You've built incredible walls to protect yourself, but you've trapped yourself inside them. Not everything valuable can be bought or sold. Something unexpected tightened in Dmitry's chest. He turned away, ostensibly to close the contract display. You're declining $10 million on principle, he asked, his voice carefully controlled. I'm declining the distraction, she corrected. We have refugees waiting for our protection. That's payment enough. As Nadia left his office, Dmitry remained motionless, confronting an unfamiliar sensation. He had designed a perfect test and hoped, for the first time, that someone would fail it. Broken firewalls. The week following Nadia's rejection of his offer, Dmitry retreated into isolation. He cancelled meetings, worked remotely, and avoided the Sanctuary project floor entirely. His test had backfired spectacularly. Instead of exposing Nadia's hidden agenda, it had revealed his own broken paradigm. Sir, Ms. Ochoa has requested an update on the project timeline. His assistant reported over the secure line. Tell her the project continues as planned, Dmitry replied, staring out at the rain-streaked windows of his penthouse. That evening, he found himself reviewing security footage of Nadia working alone late into the night, her determination undiminished by his absence. A memory surfaced, his father's voice. Trust no one, Dmitry. People only see what you can give them. His father had built and lost 3 fortunes before Dmitry turned 18, betrayed each time by business partners he considered friends. Dmitry's phone lit up with an urgent notification. A sophisticated cyber attack was targeting refugee databases across 3 continents. He immediately called the office. It's already spreading, his security chief reported, and it's specifically targeting our sanctuary protocols, like someone knew exactly what we were building. Dmitry's blood went cold. Had his instincts been right after all? He arrived at headquarters to find organized chaos. In the center of it stood Nadia, directing a team with calm authority, her eyes red from hours of emergency response. "The attack signature matches Black Shadow," she told him without preamble. "They're exploiting the exact vulnerability we patched last week." "How do they know what to target?" Dmitri asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Nadia met his gaze, suddenly understanding his implication. "You think I leaked the protocols? The timing is convenient." Her expression shifted from shock to disappointment. "Check my workstation, my communications, whatever you need. But while you're busy suspecting me, refugees are at risk." Without waiting for his response, she returned to the defensive operation. Hours later they had contained the breach. The post-incident analysis revealed the attack had originated from a competing security firm that had been monitoring their network traffic. They didn't need an inside source. Dmitri's head of security confirmed. "They just watched our test deployments." Dmitri found Nadia in the break room, exhausted but still working on her laptop. "The breach is contained," he said. "I know. I'm implementing additional safeguards now." He sat across from her. "Nadia, about my suspicions." "Don't," she interrupted, closing her laptop. "I understand why you think that way. What I don't understand is why you're so determined to live in that prison." Her words struck with precision. "What prison?" "The one where every connection is a transaction, where trust is impossible." She gathered her things. "My parents lost everything twice, but they never lost their ability to believe in people." She stood to leave. "That's true wealth, Dmitri, and you're bankrupting yourself." As she walked away, Dmitri realized that for all his digital fortresses, he had no defense against this truth. Asterisk rewritten code. 3 days passed without word from Nadia. Project Sanctuary continued under her remote direction, but she hadn't returned to the office. Dmitri found himself standing outside her modest apartment building, second-guessing his decision to come. When she opened the door, her surprise was evident. "Dmitri, may I come in?" he asked, uncharacteristically uncertain. Her apartment was small but warm, filled with books, plants, and photographs from around the world, so different from his sterile penthouse. "I owe you an apology," he began, declining her offer of tea and an explanation. "You don't owe me anything," she replied, sitting across from him. "I do." He took a deep breath. "My father built his business on handshake deals. He trusted everyone. Each time he was betrayed, something in him hardened. By the time I was 18, he'd taught me that trust was for fools." Dmitri looked around her apartment. "I built Obsidian Shield on that principle. Verify everything. Trust nothing." Nadia listened without interruption. "It worked," he continued, "until I met someone who operates from an entirely different code." He met her eyes. "The test I gave you, it wasn't just about money. It was about purpose. I needed to know if yours could be redirected. And now you know," she said simply. "Now I know," he agreed, "and I find myself wanting to rewrite some of my own code." The following week, Dmitri called a press conference. With Nadia beside him, he announced that Project Sanctuary would become an independent non-profit, funded by Obsidian Shield but governed by a board of refugee advocates and security experts. Additionally, he stated to the surprised press, Obsidian Shield will allocate 20% of its annual profits to providing security infrastructure for humanitarian organizations worldwide. The business press called it madness. His board threatened to revolt, but when the first successful implementation saved thousands of refugee identities in Lebanon, even the shareholders began to see the value not just in goodwill, but in technological advancement pushed by real-world challenges. 6 months later, Dmitri and Nadia stood in a Jordanian refugee camp, watching children use secure tablets to connect with family members across borders. "You were right," Dmitri told her, his hand tentatively finding hers. "Some things can't be bought or sold, and some walls are meant to be broken," she replied, her fingers intertwining with his together. They had created something neither wealth nor power alone could build: a bridge between worlds, a connection based on shared purpose rather than transaction. As the desert sunset, Dmitri realized he had finally found something worth more than all his digital fortresses: the courage to trust, and the freedom that came with it. In Nadia's eyes, he saw not what she wanted from him, but what they could build together, something authentic, something real. And for the first time in decades, Dmitri Kovacs felt truly secure.